This is the story of something strange, something terrifying that happened in a building where no one ever spoke about the missing 13th floor. But today, I am going to tell you what really happened. It all started when Daniel, a young journalist, moved to a new city for work. He found a beautiful old apartment building in the heart of downtown. It was a tall, elegant structure, but there was one odd thing about it. There was no 13th floor. The elevator buttons went from 12 to 14, as if the number 13 never existed. Daniel had heard about superstitions surrounding the 13th floor, but he never paid attention to such things. He was a man of logic, of facts. One evening, after a long day at work, Daniel stepped into the elevator. He pressed the button for his floor, 15. The elevator started moving up, smooth as always. But then, something weird happened. The lights flickered, and instead of stopping at 15, the elevator came to a halt between floors. The doors slid open slowly, and to his surprise, the display above the door showed 13. Daniel's heart pounded. That was impossible. There was no 13th floor. It didn't exist. But as he looked outside, he saw a dimly lit hallway stretching in front of him. The walls were covered in old, peeling wallpaper, and the air smelled musty, like a place that had been abandoned for years. Something told him to stay inside, to not step out. But curiosity got the better of him. He cautiously stepped forward. The moment his foot touched the hallway floor, the elevator doors shut behind him, and the button panel inside went dark. The elevator was gone. Daniel turned around. The hallway was silent except for a faint whisper. It wasn't clear where it was coming from, but it sounded like voices, murmurs. He took a deep breath and walked forward. There were doors on both sides of the hallway, each numbered 1301, 1302, 1303. Every door was old, scratched, and locked. As he moved forward, the whispers grew louder. He stopped. In front of a door labeled 1306, the whispers were coming from inside. He placed his ear against it, and suddenly, bang! The door rattled violently, as if someone inside was trying to break out. Daniel jumped back, his breath quickening. He turned to run back to the elevator, but the hallway seemed longer than before. The doors stretched endlessly, disappearing into darkness. Then, the lights above him flickered and went out. The whispers turned into low growls. Shadows moved along the walls, and Daniel felt something watching him. Something unseen, but very, very close. A cold breath brushed against his neck. Then, a voice, a hoarse whisper. "You shouldn't be here." Daniel spun around, but there was no one. His heart pounded against his ribs. He reached for his phone, but it was dead. No signal, no light, nothing. Suddenly, one of the doors creaked open on its own. 1309. Daniel didn't want to go in, but the moment he turned away, he heard a familiar sound, his own voice. It was coming from inside the room. Shaking, he stepped forward and pushed the door open wider. The room inside was dark except for a single flickering light bulb hanging from the ceiling. The walls were covered in strange symbols, and in the middle of the room was an old, dusty mirror. He stepped closer. His reflection stared back at him, but something was off. His reflection wasn't copying his movements. It was smiling. Daniel froze. His own reflection slowly raised a hand and pointed behind him. Daniel turned around, and there, standing in the doorway, was a figure, a tall, thin silhouette with hollow black eyes. Its mouth was stretched into an unnatural grin, and its fingers were long and sharp. Daniel's scream caught in his throat as the figure lunged at him, but before it could touch him, the floor beneath him collapsed. He was falling through darkness. And then, ding, the sound of the elevator. Daniel's eyes shot open. He was back in the elevator. The doors slid open, and he stumbled out onto his actual floor. Everything looked normal. The lights were bright, the air smelled fresh, and people walked past him like nothing had happened. Had it been a dream? A hallucination? He turned back to the elevator, but the display no longer showed 13. It had disappeared, just like before. Shaken, Daniel rushed to his apartment. He locked the door and tried to calm his racing heart. Maybe it was stress. Maybe he had imagined everything. But as he turned to his mirror, his blood ran cold. Because there, in the reflection, behind him, was the same grinning figure, watching him. And this time, it whispered his name.